So how long does it take to learn a language, you ask? Well, it really depends on many factors, and we're going to get into all of those, or at least many of them, in this video here today. Because I know you want to know when you start learning a language, right? How long is it going to take me? What do I need to do? Is it going to take me a year? Is it going to take me 4 years? Is it going to take me a week? Probably not a week. It's probably going to take you a lot longer than that. So what are these factors that determine how long it takes to learn a language? Well, depending on your person, your situation, your language learning needs, and your goals for your language, it's going to be different for you. So if you're learning a second language, right, you've never learned another language before, you have a native language, and now you're learning a second language, well, you've got to learn language, and you've got to learn the second language. And so that's part of why it can take a while. If you already know some languages, so if you have a few languages already, and let's say like me, you speak English and Spanish and a little bit of French, and so if I wanted to learn like Portuguese or Italian, it wouldn't take quite as long as it took me to learn Spanish, or even to learn French, ideally, if I studied and I, put in the time and the work each day. It wouldn't take me quite as long to learn those languages because they're all in that Romance language family. So that's one of the things to consider. If you're learning a language that's similar to the languages that you already know, then it might not take you quite as long. But it's really a loaded question to say, how long does it take to learn a language? Because we're really never finished learning a language. Even your native language, like even English is my native language, but I'm not finished learning it yet because there is always more. So there's no end to language learning. Even though, like as a native English speaker, I'm fluent in language, of course, it's my language, but there is still vocabulary that I don't know. There are different fields, different jargon that I don't know because I don't have a need to use, quite frankly. Like, I don't have knowledge of medical terms in English because I don't need them. I don't work in the medical field. So I probably won't learn those. Or if you go into other sciences or into law, for example, like I don't know all the legal terms. So those kind of areas, like you're never going to know 100% of a language. It's just not going to happen. And part of the reason for that, why it's impossible to know 100% of a language, is because there's always new aspects of it evolving. There's new vocabulary that's added to it, and there are different varieties of it, and it's never going to stop evolving as far as I can see. And so with that in mind, like it's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna be 100%. And really the question you should be asking yourself is, how long is it going to take me to get to my goal? So my goal, so I'll talk to you guys about my personal goal for my Spanish, is that currently I have a level where I would say that I'm fluent if I'm speaking in conversation, like casual conversation, or going out, if I go to a restaurant, or go to a Spanish-speaking country, whatever it is, I would consider myself fluent in that aspect, right? Because I can communicate anything that I need to, and I can do it in a way that is understood. I don't make mistakes that are distracting from my intention. So I do make mistakes, of course. I make mistakes in English and Spanish and everything. That is always going to happen. There's no escape from that. But I would consider myself fluent in that aspect. However, I would not consider myself fluent in all aspects of Spanish because I don't have all the vocabulary that I need for Spanish and for certain situations. And that's part of the reason that I started my channel, is because it gives me a reason to look into different vocabulary and to really, really get to know the Spanish language. So there's vocabulary here and there. I don't really have a specific area that I would say that my Spanish is weaker. It's really just overall I would like to improve. So for my goal, for how long it's going to take me, it's going to take me a lifetime for me, because I don't see a limit to how much I want to improve. There is always going to be something I want to improve in, but I do have goals that I can reach before I die. So before that, because you do need to have something to strive for. And currently that is my bachelor's degree in Spanish. So this is my second bachelor's degree that I'm working on. And my goal is to become fluent enough in Spanish where I can read literature and respond and speak, and I can communicate as easily as I can in my native language. Because currently I can communicate in Spanish, but I'm not as comfortable in it as my native language, and I don't know if I'll ever be as comfortable in Spanish as English, because I've just been speaking English so much longer and I'm exposed to English all the time. So I don't know when or if that'll happen, but that is my goal. So my goal is really like work completion, is that completing my bachelor's degree. It's essentially I'm going to be able to communicate the way that I would like to. And currently I can read through those novels, like I can get through the literature that I'd like to, but it takes me a very long time because I have to look up so many words, and it's a process. So my goal is to be able to read a book like I can read a book in English. So I can open it up and I can read through it without having to look up so many words. And there's always going to be something, like even when I read in English, there's still words that I don't know once in a while, and even if I read, more advanced literature, then there's even more words that I don't know. So I'm improving my English as well and my skills in that area as well. And how long is it going to take? It's going to take me a few years to finish my bachelor's degree, because my French studies is kind of slowing that down. I'm only going to do one class a quarter, so it's going to take a while, and then I'll probably end up even taking some extra Spanish classes on top of what I need, because my French is going to slow it down to where it takes me like 4 years to finish, even though I could finish this year if I was only doing Spanish. So it's going to take me a while. It's going to take me 4 years approximately, we'll see, to meet that goal. And that'll be a fluency level that I think I'll be very comfortable with, and I'm already comfortable where I am, but that's my goal. So what I suggest to you is think about what your goal is for learning your language. So if you say you want to achieve fluency, it's really, there's so much that I could say about fluency. That's going to be another video topic, because it really goes deep. So think about what you want to achieve with your language abilities. Do you want to just be able to communicate in conversation? If so, then you can work on that. You'll still need a little bit of reading and writing and listening and all of that with your speaking, but that's your primary focus, and you can probably achieve that much sooner than being able to read and write and, do essays and literature like I'm doing. You can do just conversational level. You can achieve that more quickly than learning the entire language. And I say the entire language, even though, we established that you're never going to know an entire language, but there's different levels. So if conversational is your goal, which, if you just want to be able to get by, then that's great. And if you need to be able to read and write in that language, it's going to take longer. And ideally you'll be working on all of these skills simultaneously, but it'll take longer. So if let's say you're a lawyer and you want to be able to be fully fluent in your English and your Spanish or any language, I'm just going to use Spanish as an example here. And so you need to learn, you need to know that language really well, especially if you're in something like law, because you have to be precise with your language and you have to be able to write documents in that language and to present your information with very, very few mistakes. So that's going to take much, much longer. So the short answer to how long is it going to take you to learn a language? Well, depending on your goal, that'll determine like how fluent you want to be. The other huge factor in determining it is how much time you put into it. So if you are studying every single day and you are constantly exposed to the language, like maybe you even live in a country that speaks that language and you practice every day, you're gonna learn it much quicker than if you're just studying once a week for an hour. If you just study once a week or even twice a week for an hour, it's gonna take a long time. And it's not to say that you have to study that intensively, like every single day for hours and hours on end. You don't have to do that. But the more you work at it, the quicker you're gonna learn for the most part. And your circumstances, right? Where you live, your exposure to the language, if you have the luxury of living in a country that speaks that language, that's like the ultimate resource because you're around it 24/7. But if you don't, and you practice by watching movies, by listening to music, by reading and writing, that's also exposure to the language. So you can immerse yourself without leaving your home. And how much of that you do is going to determine how long it takes you to learn. So for the most part, I would say that a very determined person could achieve a conversational level of fluency within like a year or two if they work very hard at it. So if you are studying every day and you have exposure to it, like you could get speaking that language in a year or two. If you want to achieve like fluency, and again, word fluency, if you want to be able to communicate very comfortably and naturally, I would say that it takes I think I heard somewhere that like 5 years is kind of the golden point with that if you speak it for 5 years, you've had time to really let it sink into your brain and understand the language. So if you're getting up there in like 5 years, you could become pretty fluent, pretty native-like at that point. I wouldn't really consider myself native-like yet, even though I've been speaking Spanish for like twice as long as that, because I didn't study intensively all of those years. So I did study intensively for periods of time, like for a year or two, and then I kind of took a break, and then I studied a little bit and here and there. So that's the major factor, you guys, is how much time you put into it, how much you're willing to work on it, and to just how important it is to you to achieve, and your goal, so what level it is that you would like to achieve. So really that's what it comes down to, you guys, is your goal that you want to achieve, and how fluent you want to be, conversational, more advanced, if you want to just keep improving and improving your whole life, which really, learning a language is a lifelong commitment. It's always going to be part of you once you learn it, unless you don't maintain those skills. And if you don't maintain them, then you lose them, or at least they diminish. And it really just comes down to how much are you willing to work for it, because learning a language is work. It is a lot of work and effort, and you really have to enjoy it to really get into the language. And if you don't enjoy it, you can still do it, but it's gonna be a challenge. So when you're learning another language and you're thinking about how long is this gonna take me, plan on it taking a long time. Plan on it being part of who you are for basically for the rest of your life. And choose a language that you want to be part of you, that is that important to you, because the more valuable it is to you, the more willing you're going to be to put in that time and that effort. And that's my best advice for you guys. All right, I'll see you guys back here next time. Ciao.